Hi, and welcome to Liquid Gold, the vlog about the wonderful world of whiskey. My name's Callum McFadgen. Today in the vlog, we're going to be continuing our journey through the whiskey regions of Scotland, and this time we're going to take you to Speyside. Now, Speyside is the largest area of Scotland in terms of whiskey production, and the sheer number of distilleries is huge, it's massive. The area was actually formerly known as the Glenlivet area, but I think that's maybe a story that's best told when we talk about the Glenlivet distillery itself. So the Speyside takes its name from the River Spey that runs from the hills above Aberlour right out to the coast in Moray Firth near Elgin and Buckie. But none of the distilleries actually take their water from the River Spey itself. And some of them are quite close to the river, including Craigellachie, Tamdhu, Macallan, and Glen Grant, and also the distillery that I'm going to be talking about today, which is Aberlour, one of my favourites. So let's start with the village of Aberlour itself. The name means the mouth of the chattering burn, and the burn in question is the Lower Burn. And this not only gives the village and the distillery its name, but it's actually, the water is also used as part of the process for cooling the distilled whisky. So the site of the Aberlour settlement is seen on records going back to the mid 17th century, I think, around about in the 1650s. But the current village was founded in 1812 by a guy called Charles Grant of Elchies. And the village was named after his son, who was also called Charles. So the full name of the village is Charlestown of Aberlour. So when you visit the area around Aberlour, there's actually quite a lot to see and do, especially for fans of whisky, of course, by the number of distilleries around the area. But if you like hill walking and even civil engineering, I'll come to that in a minute, it's a great place to visit. And in the village, well, there's some really nice whisky bars and some great hotels where the food is brilliant. Last time I was there with a group from the Edinburgh University's Water of Life Society, it was an absolutely gorgeous day, really, really warm, sort of late springtime kind of day. So quite a few of us sat on the green in the middle of the village and we had a picnic outside, which was absolutely brilliant. So in the village, there used to be a railway station, but the line that ran through Aberlour was closed as part of the beaching cuts in the 1960s. The old station house and the platform still exist, and this has been converted into a visitor centre, which is part of the Speyside Way, which is a walking trail, and there's also a really nice little tea room there as well. So the Speyside Way is a long distance walking route, and it covers about 65 miles from Aviemore up in the Cairngorms all the way out to Buckie on the Moray Firth coastline. And just a few miles north of Aberlour, the village of Craigellachie, where there's another distillery, there's a walking trail that takes you along the River Fiddich, and this of course gives its name to another one of the great Scottish whiskies. But if you prefer a wee bit of a shorter walk, either before or after visiting the distillery, there's a path that runs alongside the Lower Burn, about 15 to 20 minutes upstream from the distillery. You can see a beautiful set of waterfalls called the Lynn Falls. And if you're ever up visiting the distillery, I really recommend that you take a little walk and head up there. So, as well as whisky and walking, I mentioned civil engineering. It might seem a little unusual, but there's a reason for that. Near Craigellachie, there's a really impressive cast iron bridge that crosses the River Spey. Now, this bridge was designed and built by the great engineer Thomas Telford, and it's a Grade A listed historical building. So as well as the cast iron span of the bridge, which used to take road traffic up until the 1970s even, there are two absolutely stunning faux medieval turrets on either side of the bridge, complete with arrow slits and battlements, just in case there's any invaders try to come and steal the whiskey, I think. But anyway, while the bridge is closed to traffic now, you can still walk across it and cycle across it today. And talking of bridges, in Aberlour village itself, there's this really elegant pedestrian suspension bridge called Victoria Bridge, which also takes you right across the River Spey. So it's a great area to visit, as well as whisky distilleries. Not far from Aberlour, there's also the Speyside cooperage, where a huge amount of the whisky casks that come to Scotland from America are put back together again, ready for use by the whisky industry. So let's talk whisky now. And like I said, I'm a big fan of Aberlour. And I've got quite a few bottles from the distillery, but today I'm going to focus on two of them. I'm going to focus on the 10-year-old Aberlour and something a wee bit more unusual. Now, Aberlour generally uses a lot of sherry casks in its whisky, and a little bit of bourbon as well. So I'm going to show you the bottle here. This is the Aberlour 10, and you can see it's got this really rich, dark red colour to it, which is really typical of quite a lot of Speyside distilleries that use a lot of sherry casks. Places like Macallan, Glenfarclas and Mortlach as well use a lot of these sherry casks, and it's become a kind of a signature of the Speyside region, and it's one of my favourite styles of whisky. So if I can get this open, there we go. I'm going to try a little bit of this now. On the nose, you immediately get that rich, fruity warmness in the spirit, and the sort of wininess comes through it as well. I could sit here and just sniff this all day. It really is really, really nice. I do like it a lot. Now, this is, as I say, the sort of standard 10-year-old bottling. It's a bit lighter than some of the special bottles like the Abuna, which means the origin, and I'm really going to have to go into a separate blog for the Abuna because it is really, really special. And when I last visited the distillery, once you go on the tour, you can actually bottle your own whisky, either straight from a bourbon cask or from a sherry cask. And the cask that I took a sample from was a 16-year-old Oloroso cask. It was really, really rich, really, really stunning. Very thick, heavy-bodied whisky. And it's just absolutely divine, absolutely amazing. But this one here, mostly Oloroso, but with a little bit of bourbon in it as well. So it's got a little bit of lightness to it. It's a really nice, soft drinking dram as well. But in the nose, you actually get a little bit of meatiness that comes through this. And it's almost a little hint of bacon. So it's a great dram, and I really, really like it. But for value for money, the 10-year-old Aberlour is absolutely stunning. In the co-op store in Aberlour, they've literally got pallets of the stuff, huge crates, selling for £20 a bottle, which is absolutely ridiculously brilliant value for such a really nice whiskey. And, you know, if I had a few friends round for a dram or two, we could easily sit and drink this, no problem at all. It's a great whiskey. Now, the second whiskey I'm going to talk about comes from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. So I got this sample again from Edinburgh Uni, the Water of Life Society. They gave me a little bit of this sample to take away. And the Scotch Malt Whisky Society are independent bottlers. They bring casks from different distilleries. They have a tasting panel that tries it. And they don't tell you where the whisky comes from, which distillery it is. They give you, there's a number on the bottle, which gives you a rough idea. In this case, it's cask number 54.56. So the first number tells you which distillery it comes from. In this case, it's Aberlour. And the 56, it's the 56 cask that they have brought from the distillery. But this one is 12 years old. It was distilled on the 24th of February in 2005. I'm reading off the notes here. But anyway, it's a second fill bourbon barrel. So the cask has already been used once, and a lot of the flavour has been drawn out from the spirit. So this is the second lot of spirit that has gone into this cask, and it's cask strength. It's not been watered down. It's not been softened up, and it comes in at a pretty hefty 59.3%. So a lot stronger than the 43% of the 10-year-old. But the flavour of this is completely different as well. And with it coming from one single cask, there is only 180 bottles of this whiskey ever made. So I think it's long gone now. It's sold out, but it's really nice to share this and talk about it. So the nose immediately much lighter, much softer. There's no sherry in this at all. So it's a little grassier. A lot of hay comes through it, and from the cask, the bourbon, there's this hint of honey and vanilla that I maybe spoke about from Auchentoshan before. But because it's in a second fill cask, I actually get the feeling that the cask, the wood itself, has a little bit more influence on the spirit than it otherwise would have. So there's a little hint of white chocolate to this. It's slightly soft, creamy, much lighter than the 10-year-old or Dibuna or any of the other standard bottlings of Aberlour. But the first thing I get, with it being 59.3% cask strength, the first mouthful, you get a little bit more of a hit of that alcohol, but not too much. What I'm actually getting a lot from it is a slight woodiness from it, almost a hint of pine. It's a really fresh, light whiskey, almost like something like sitting out in the sun. And the name that the SMWS gave to this whiskey was A Cricket Pavilion in Tuscany. So I can imagine a sort of woodiness of maybe a cricket bat or an old changing room, an old wooden pavilion. That really does come through. There is a slight fruitiness to it, but it's more a sort of acidy, like a nectarine or orange, maybe even a little hint of rhubarb or raspberry even coming through here. But this dryness is completely different to what I had before. Now, sometimes when the cask has a lot of influence on the whiskey, that can be a bad thing. It can draw out a lot of, if it's a former wine cask or sherry cask, it draws out a lot of tannins. It can be quite sulphury, where it's a virgin oak cask or a refilled bourbon cask. It can sometimes be really piney, quite rough, woody. But in this case, it is really soft, and the flavour, this woodiness that comes through, is actually really pleasant. It's a really nice whiskey, and cost a little bit more than the 10-year-old, to say, was £20. This one was £55 a bottle, but it is from an independent bottler, and it's a single cask of something a little bit more unusual from the standard Aberlour. So it's a great distillery. The tours there are absolutely brilliant. They can do anything from a real beginner who just wants to see a distillery right through to really in-depth technical tours for experts or people who have been in whisky societies, writing blogs. They really go into a lot of depth, explain a lot of detail. It's a beautiful distillery. The setting is amazing, and I would really recommend going there. It's great and really nice whiskey. Incidentally, I forgot to mention that it's actually the top selling whiskey in France. It's currently owned by Pernod Ricard. And it's a really popular whiskey, definitely in the top 10 whiskies distilleries in Scotland. I really recommend it, and as I say, £20 for a bottle of 10-year Aberlour. Absolutely stunning value for money. Go out, try it, and slán you well. Cheers.